Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is reconciliation. Yesterday was conflict and today is reconciliation. So we get to further the story and look at the dynamics of how to create bridges and healing and beyond. So before we get started, let's take a minute to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flowing into your lungs and flooding your bloodstream with energy and vitality, nourishing all your cells and all your organs. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating your cells, electrifying and energizing all your electrons, all your molecules, and connecting you with the world beyond it. And as you exhale any stress, any tension, any fatigue or negativity that was remaining. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very, very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel that delicious sensation and bring yourselves present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, if you were here yesterday, you participated in the conversation around conflict and how to resolve conflict. And so this today is really about conflict resolution and reconciliation. And what does it take? What does it take to go and resolve conflict? Um, I think I think first off, it takes courage, because part of what needs to happen is vulnerability. And in the face of conflict, being vulnerable can be really scary. Well, in any case, being vulnerable could be really scary, right? But especially in the face of conflict, when you don't know how people are going to respond. And so, in navigating the situation that I was navigating, which uh, was in a group of cherished women that I have been meeting with regularly for over a year. Good morning, Rosalind. We're talking about reconciliation and resolution. And good morning, Kim. Haven't seen you here for a while. Welcome. Great to have you back. We're talking about reconciliation. Yesterday, we were talking about conflict and looking at what it takes to be able to resolve things, resolve conflict. And I think that it takes a degree of humiliation, courage, and and obviously willingness. We don't get anywhere if there's not a willingness on sides, on both sides or all sides, to let go of their position. So Rosalind says resolving conflicts takes willingness now on both sides. Absolutely. So in the situation that I was in, we all really care about each other. So and we wanted to be able to resolve this issue. So there was the willingness. And then there's the courage, obviously, to be vulnerable and authentic and honest. And honesty means being willing to look at our own part in the matter, obviously, and not just blaming. And there's a level of humility, right, to be able to to take responsibility for one's part in things. So what do we have here? We have willingness is number one. Then there's humility, vulnerability, honesty. And for me, what I actually got from our conversation yesterday, which was really powerful and helpful, was to go into the conversation first speaking my intentions. And my intentions were connection, respect, love, fearlessness. Thank you, Kim. Yes, indeed. Well, I'm wondering, is there a distinction between courage and fearlessness? Maybe fearlessness is going beyond the fear. I think courage is taking action even if there is fear. Maybe so. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know if I was entirely fearless because I didn't know what the outcome would be, and ultimately I trusted that the outcome would be perfect in whatever way it showed up. But I think it was more courage for me than fearlessness anyway in this particular instance. The courage to to be vulnerable and speak from the heart and be accountable for my role in creating the conflict. So it was really, really quite a remarkable and beautiful thing that happened, because one of the things that was at stake is judgment, people feeling judged. And from that place, we got into a conversation. Everybody shared really authentically and expressed what their feelings were, and a lot of it was about breaching the trust in the group, the trust of non-judgment. And it was really interesting because what came up and what came out of it was that one of the members of the group spoke up and said that they hadn't really spoken up on multiple occasions because they didn't want to risk being judged. And that was really, really powerful, because then they spoke of their vantage point and their perspective and really challenged their fear of being judged, because they spoke their own truth. And it was so beautiful because everybody cheered them on. Everybody said congratulations for showing up, like really showing up as you authentically, rather than being in the shadows and feeling like you're having to hide because of what might occur if you showed yourself. And so interestingly, we say everything happens for a reason, but I think interestingly, this incident allowed us to move into a deeper and richer connection with one another. And I think that was actually the intention for everyone. But there was the acknowledgement and recognition and respect that was given to every person, and the result was a much deepened relationship between all of us. So I'm wondering, for you, have you found that places in your life where conflict has actually resulted in a deepening of relationship? Because in my experience anyway, I find that conflict can either make or break a relationship. And I remember from years and years ago a saying or an observation that in order to have a relationship, to really have a deep relationship, you need to be willing to be able to lose it. And what that means is to say the things that need to be said, even if it means that it will potentially ruin the relationship. So because without saying them, there's a massive withhold. And with saying them, there's the risk of losing the relationship. However, in saying them, there's also the possibility of deepening the relationship, of being able to be more deeply authentic in the relationship and trusting, because if we're withholding a part of ourselves or we're keeping a secret, then that part of ourselves is never really fully present in the relationship. And so speaking those things, I think it's a delicate balance, speaking the things that need to be said. It's a delicate balance in taking our own responsibility, in speaking them, and being accountable in speaking them, and speaking them in a way that they can be heard. So not pointing fingers, not shaming and blaming, talking about our own experience, things like that. So interesting. I'm wondering what kinds of situations you've found yourself in where you have actually been able to successfully resolve conflict, to come to resolution, to come to reconciliation, to reconcile the relationship. I know yesterday when we were talking about conflict, a lot of us were talking about walking away in a lot of situations. And there are a lot of situations where walking away is warranted. And the question that we get to engage in is, what's at stake? What's at stake in resolving this conflict? What's at stake in this relationship, in my connection with others, as well as my connection and integrity with myself? And these are important questions because they carry into all dimensions of our lives, right? They carry into how we cultivate relationships and the level of intimacy that we allow ourselves to experience. I wonder where the line is around sharing, like as we're going through our ups and downs and our ins and outs, is it necessary to share all of the acrobatics that we go through in order to have that level of communication? I wonder sometimes. Yeah, I'm. You can hear I'm thinking a bunch of different thoughts that are conflicting with each other at the moment around this. In terms of intimacy, what's appropriate to share? Do I need to share the intricacies of why I'm having a rough day, or is it enough to say I'm having a rough day? I wonder, we, within the context of different relationships, certainly we have different boundaries or different needs or needs for a different level of communication, right? Depending on what the context is for the relationship. I know that when I was growing up, oftentimes within minutes of meeting me, within like 10 minutes of meeting me, people would either tell me I was crazy or too intense. And looking back, what I realized is that I didn't have the social filters so when people would say, how are you? I would say how I was, and not realize that that was not really a real question. And that's where the intensity came from. And it's interesting that confronted with intensity, a lot of people don't know how to interact with that. And I think that generated part of the you're crazy kind of thing. But I learned over the years, right, to engage in social niceties, shall we say, to that they're all different forms of communication, and maybe sharing your deepest, darkest with somebody isn't the optimal thing to do on first meeting. Now, on the other side, I can say that I have had the privilege of engaging in now that I'm older, and it's interesting, now that I'm older, maybe I have more social skills and social balance, or know how to balance those kinds of conversations, but I also do get into real conversations a whole lot more quickly, and people will say, oh my gosh, I haven't told anybody that before, or how did we get into such a deep conversation so quickly? And it's because I don't really have time that I want to waste with platitudes for very long. And Tammy says, funny how the question, how are you, is more like a greeting, like saying hi. We have to decide, do they really want to know? LOL. Yeah, exactly. Typically, people don't really want to know. It's like, hey, how you doing? And it is a hello. It took me a long time to figure that out. There may be certain places where I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer there. But I have to say that, back to this idea of reconciliation, the group that I am talking about, the thing that happened in this group, the group is very real. It's a space where we get to speak what's really real for us. And that's a wonderful context to be able to exist in. And I have to say that I don't have superficial friendships. I don't have, there's always a level of intimacy that goes to how you doing, with really giving an answer, or not settling for I'm fine when it doesn't really look like that's the truth. And I suspect that probably a bunch of you are in the same category, where where your interactions are meaningful. You know, like that's what's so wonderful to me about these mornings that we share, is we get to talk about things that mean something, things that affect us in our lives. We get to talk about, um, you know, getting real, right? So as human beings, we don't have an instruction manual, right? And I guess that's why the coaching thing is so valuable, is because having somebody to walk through this stuff with is really, really helpful, right? And having a community of people to bounce things off with is really, really valuable. And it's a place where we get to play out, uh, and learn and grow, in our understanding of ourselves and in our understanding of others. And it was really interesting. The woman who facilitates the group, who started and really sort of, um, well, she not sort of, she definitely leads the group, leads with such grace and clarity. It's so inspiring. And she let us know that there are certain dynamics that develop in groups, and that this appearance of the conflict was something that was entirely normal and and predictable. You know, that once, and you can see it in any kind of relationship, that initially, like when people are dating, initially everybody's on their best behavior, and then eventually they become more familiar, and then what can arise is conflict, you know, where you recognize differences and try to navigate the differences. And so apparently there's some of the, I don't know if I'm going to remember all four of them, but there was forming for a group, storming, which is conflict, norming, like trying to fit in, and I think the last one, I don't remember what the word was, but it had to do with deepening the relationships, and being more authentic, and identifying more collectively as a group, and deepening the bonds. So my experience, and I am venturing to guess that it might be the same for you, is that when we are able to navigate conflict and get to the other side, that it results in a deepening of the relationship, and potentially deepening of trust, because that that other person or that group is still there. And so knowing that there's the resiliency to weather disagreement kind of makes the space, potentially anyway, makes the space safer to be able to show up, you know, to know, oh, well, we can weather this. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about promoting or propagating conflict, but I am talking about how, when we see that we're able to weather the storm together, that there's an inner strength and assurance and security that arises from that, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I'm circling back to, in order to have a relationship, you need to be willing to lose it. In other words, you need to be willing to take the risk to speak your truth. And it might mean that it kills the relationship, or it might mean that gets to take the relationship to an entirely new level. And the ingredients we've identified are humility, honesty, willingness, vulnerability, and intention of connection and clarity and respect. So I think that might be it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. Maggie and I go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. I want to say thank you to you guys for being part of this and for contributing and being present for these conversations, being willing to be thinking about these things deeply and looking at how we can all find our way forward together as evolving and growing humans. Welcome, Andrea. So good to have had you here today. And until next time, so much love to you guys. Thank you.